All right, here we are in June the 7th, 8th, 2018, and we're getting in our early apples here at Buckhorn Creek Ranch. These are the ones that have gotten ripe first, and we pick them up as they fall off the tree and shake the tree a little bit and pick them up as they fall. We like to make sure they're ripe, and I found out one thing: you got to be careful when you shake that tree because these things have a way of hitting you in the head as they fall. What I want to do is encourage you to think about being responsible for your own food, as the times are pretty good right now, but we never know exactly when something may happen and you may not be able to get a hold of any food at Walmart or wherever you get it. There's two reasons that I see to do this. One is, well, there's more than two, but it's really nice to dry. We're drying these apples, and you know what you got here. I know in the apple industry, I happen to know this for a fact, that they use many chemicals on apples in commercial apple production. And I want to show you something here and show you how an apple from an organic tree looks. You see that little rough spot right there? Now you won't find anything like that on an apple in the grocery store. And that's because they spray those apples with all kinds of chemicals to keep this from happening. And it's strictly cosmetic. See that little blemish? They'd never make it. All the apples look perfect in the store. Well, they're perfect because they spray them routinely with many different chemicals to keep those apples looking good. But it's only that they look good. It's not that they are good. These apples have never been sprayed, never been touched. As a matter of fact, I didn't even put any fertilizer around the trees. Strictly organic. Okay, another reason. Okay, so I can see people are going to say, oh, but I can buy dried apples cheaper than I can do it. That's probably true. But that's not the comparison, how cheap you can get something. It's, how about if there weren't any apples available? How much would they be worth then? How about the health of your family? How much would that be worth? Okay, so we do this ourselves, you know. We don't have to rely on a company to do it at all. So I want to encourage you to do that. Start becoming responsible. If you have questions about what kind of apple trees to grow down in South Georgia, get on the internet and research it, because I've probably got 10 different kinds of apple trees that make these beautiful apples. And these right here are the early ones, but I have other apple trees some that are halfway done, and then some that are just now beginning to make little apples, and they'll be done in the fall. So if you have questions about this, I'd be glad to answer it if you'll contact us on our website. But I really want to encourage you to do it. Now what we're going to do is, I'm cutting these apples up. I don't go to any rigmarole. Let me tell you about this too. When I was a kid, we had an apple coring machine that you stick the apple on there and you turn a crank and it would peel the apples, and then it would cut the core of the apple out and you'd be left with the meat of the apple. Well, let me tell you, you're doing away with all of the good of the apple if you do that. I think everybody nowadays knows that the vitamins and all the good stuff is in the skin of the apple. Okay, and let me tell you something else about an apple. When I do these, I cut straight through them. I don't fuss about it, but the very middle of the apple is where the seeds are. Now this particular apple doesn't have any, but that's where the vitamin B17 is in apple seeds. You need to look that up and find out what vitamin B17 is. It's also called Laetrile. It's a cure for cancer. So the old saying, an apple a day would keep the doctor away, my opinion is, it was probably from the Middle Ages or before. And they didn't mean an apple that you had peeled and cored. They meant probably the whole apple, including the seeds, just like a deer does. If you throw an apple to a deer, they don't spit the seeds out. They don't peel it. They eat the whole thing. They even eat the stem. I'd probably take the stems off. Now I'm going to show you in a few minutes how we put it in a dehydrator, and then I'm going to show you the finished product. Remember, the comparison is not how cheap you can buy the apples, dried apples for. The comparison is how good is it, and how much would it be worth if you didn't have any apples. There's one other little situation, one other little reason to do this. There's a certain amount of satisfaction from growing your own stuff and putting it up for your family. So I'll check back with you in a few minutes, show you what we do with the dehydrator, and show you the finished product. Alright, I'm going to give y'all a little tip on cutting these apples up. I know you're grown people and you can figure out how to cut apples up, but you may not think of this, and this could help you. I'm about to get to the bottom of the barrel here. You know, some of these apples are obviously got some kind of place on them, you know, but okay, this is the tip right here. This is for safety. Okay, so you're going to cut the apple straight through like I told you before. Alright, there's a little spot on that one that's just beginning to rot. Now you could dry that, that's not going to make any difference, but the reason I look for a spot is because I want to start my cut on the side of the apple. And see, I actually cut that little brown spot off of there. Now you can actually dry that, but you know, I've got plenty of apples, so I'll just give that to the chickens. Now watch this. Now you can turn your apple over and it's not going to rock around. If you don't cut that little flat spot, you've got to balance this apple, and when it gets down to the small part, it's difficult to hold, you see. So you cut the first cut, and then you got a place to hold the apple, and then you can slice it with confidence right down to the very end without it rocking around on you. And so this one here doesn't have a bad spot on it, but I'm still going to cut I see a place here that's kind of flat. I'm still going to make my first cut right there. I'm going to decide, and then the thing will sit flat and I can go ahead and do my work without having to worry about my apple rolling on me and cutting my fingers off. Okay, that's just a little tip I discovered or figured out on cutting your apples up in a more efficient and safe manner. Alright, step 2. Well, I guess step 1 is planting the apple trees. I guess you got planting your apple trees and waiting 5 years for them to produce. But step 2, after you cut them up, you got to put them on your dehydrating tray. Alright? I tell you about the dehydrator too now. I would encourage you, if you really want to do this right, is to get you a decent dehydrator. Because the little cheap ones are going to spend forever trying to get them dried. And you're going to spend forever, and you might get, you know, you're trying to make some food here. Put up food for your family. Selling it, pretty much think that wouldn't be a good idea, because I don't think people are willing to pay what it's worth anymore. Because remember, you'd be competing against people that cheat in their quality. They cheat, they make stuff, they do things that you wouldn't want to do for food that you're feeding your family. And I mean chemical wise and non-organic wise. So maybe if you want to get into, I just don't think anymore these days about selling anything that I produce. Okay, there's your tray of stuff. Now I'll tell you about this little dehydrator I got here. This is an LEM. I start at the top tray. LEM. These guys make all kind of supplies for making jerky and dried food and all. And the reason I went with them on this is that they have been doing this a long time, and they have these dehydrators made specifically for them. And the reason I bought this, it's got a 5-year warranty. That's important. The motor goes out or something like that. That said on the box a 2-year warranty, but I called them online. They offered 5 years, and I called them up and they said no problem. It's 5 years. We guarantee it, and I think this company's pretty good. Okay, so you put your apples in. Excuse me. You put your door on. I'm just going to stop with just one. This thing's got a magnetic door, and you turn it on. Now I'm not going to go through the details of turning it on. I'm a klutz with digital stuff, and I figured it out. And they got some default settings that are pretty close to what you're going to want anyway. So you turn it on for the amount of time you need, and you get your, here's some of the finished product right here, and I'll show you. And these are the apples here after they're dried. Keep them in a plate. This is peaches that we did the other day, and I'll show you something else we did that I think is outstanding. I dried some Vidalia onions, and that is a snack to me. I love the taste of that. Vidalia onions, and I didn't put any kind of salt or any kind of stuff on it at all, and it's good. But if you want to spice it up a little bit, I'm sure it would be delicious. Onion, 6, 7, 18. All right, so I'm encouraging you to do this. I think that this is a very doable thing. By the way, you're going to spend $500 on your decent dehydrator. This is stainless steel. Notice that the other ones now that are cheaper, they're plastic. And they're stainless steel racks also. These racks are stainless steel. They're spaced close together where stuff won't fall through them. They clean easy. You can also make jerky with it. So that's the reason it's going to be in the neighborhood of $500 for a decent one. All right, this is Steve Coleman at Buckhorn Creek Ranch. Hope that encourages you to start becoming responsible for your own food. And if there's any way that we can help you, feel free to email us. But I'll tell you something. All of this information is available online about, you know, what trees to get and how to plant your fruit trees and all that kind of stuff. And then all this, you've also got all of your scraps that you trim off from your apples and all that you can feed your chickens and all that kind of stuff. So this is Steve Coleman, Buckhorn Creek Ranch, signing off.